The basis of all human fears, he thought, a closed door, slightly ajar. Eddie discovered one of his childhood's great truths. Grown-ups are the real monsters, he thought. But see that you get on. That's your job in this hard world, to keep your love alive and see that you get on. No matter what, pull your act together and just go on. The place where you made your stand never mattered, only that you were there and still on your feet. It wasn't fair, but what is? Life is a crap carnival with shit prizes. Go then. There are other worlds than these. Control the things you can, maggot. Let everything else take a flying fuck at you, and if you must go down with your guns blazing. In the end, all things, even the beams, serve the Dark Tower. Did you think you would be any different? If being a kid is about learning how to live, then being a grown-up is about learning how to die. Hundreds of short stories, dozens of novels, several adaptations, one of the most recognizable authors on Earth currently, one of the most famous authors of the 20th and 21st century, and despite having only read 9 of his books so far, my favorite author of all time, Stephen King. I wanted to do a video for a while now, probably since finishing The Shining, on why I think Stephen King is my favorite author of all time, and why I think that he may continue to be my favorite author of all time for at least the next decade or more. This man is the king of horror, the king of suspense, and one of the most prolific authors of the 20th and 21st century, one of the most recognizable. He's had several adaptations. So I wanted to kind of break down, why Stephen King? What about his stories, what about his writing speaks to me and speaks to his millions of fans, and why, if you haven't given him a chance so far, maybe you should try out some Stephen King. So I'm going to give some reasons, and I'm going to just talk about what I've seen from his stories so far, because I've only read a small collection. I mean, this dude has hundreds of short stories, like I said at the beginning. He has, like 70 entire full-length novels. He has probably dozens at this point of adaptations. He's inspired probably dozens, if not hundreds of authors, and he's got some of the most iconic villains in horror history, both on the silver screen and in, the written form. So what makes Stephen King all that he is? Why do people go berserk for this dude? Why is he still in his 70s, one of the best-selling authors of all time? Why has this dude sold hundreds of millions of copies? Why has he gotten so many adaptations? And why do I personally love him so much? Well, I got a few reasons I want to break him down. First of all, his prose. His writing style is unique, in my opinion. And the fact, I read a lot of fantasy, as you guys know. I read a lot of fantasy. And fantasy is written, it's a genre that is lush in the way that it's supposed to be written, at least in my opinion. Fantasy lends itself to authors who like to get descriptive, authors who like to get lengthy, authors who are good at the English language, good at just describing things, places, people, and ideas. And Stephen King is unique because this man does not have what I would consider purple or lush prose, like a Tad Williams. But he's also not someone who is, just direct or uninspired. His writing is very clear, but you can tell when you read his stories, even his first one, Carrie or Salem's Lot, or any of his early novels, that King has a really great grasp on the English language. He uses some very provocative terms, and he really makes you feel the things that he is describing. He uses language in a way that it makes you feel it. It makes you smell the room, if you will. When he describes, the taste of alcohol, you can taste that alcohol. When he describes going into a room, you can smell that room. When he describes an unbelievable or unimaginable horror, you can imagine it. He just can bring his worlds and his characters to life with a beautiful description, and it never feels like it's too long. He never makes you hang on his words. He's always moving forward, but he's incredibly descriptive, but not in a way that feels, like self-inflagellating. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel like King is just sitting there showing how great of a writer he is to just do it. He's doing it to be provocative. He's doing it to make you interested in the story that he's writing. And that kind of leads into my second point. And this is where his prose really flares, is the atmosphere. King has this incredible ability to write atmosphere like none other that I've read. I mean, this dude can make you feel like you're in a small town that's dying in an instant. He will give you a description of a place and you are there. If he wants to write a creepy scene and make you feel chills down your spine, he can succeed at it. If he wants you to get your heart racing because you're, in the car with him and it's a thrill ride, he's gonna make your heart pound and make it feel like a thrill ride, and he's got this ability where, he can just paint a landscape with, less than a paragraph, and it's incredibly vivid. I mean, this dude just knows how to write. He is so good at describing scenery. He's so good at describing what's going on in a character's head. He's so good at describing the aroma of a place and what it looks like. He's just incredible at building atmosphere and all the things that come with atmosphere. This dude has described haunted mansions. He's described haunted cars. He's described a post-apocalyptic America. He's described, what it's like to be in a crowd that's about to be annihilated by a mass murderer, and it just instantly sucks you in. This dude has such an incredible ability of just making something feel miserable or sad or happy or romantic or scary and creepy. He is just incredible when it comes to atmosphere. Another thing that makes him an incredible writer, and one that I don't see a lot of his fans talk about, but I want to talk about, is his ability to write in several different genres. I've mostly read horror by Stephen King, and that is what he's best known for, is his horror and suspense. And he's very, very talented at horror and suspense. There's no doubt about that. He's written some of the best. He's written The Shining. He's written It. He's really quite good at this. But he's also really incredible at other genres as well. He's really incredible at thrillers. Mr. Mercedes is, I think, one of his earlier tosses at trying to write a thriller, at least that I've read. And heart pounding. The second it opens up to the second it closes, you're worried about characters. You're worried about the innocence in this story. I mean, this dude, he can keep it tight when he wants to. He can tell a really cohesive and just to a point story that makes you just have to read the next chapter. I mean, he knows how to write a thriller, but he also knows how to write fantasy. The Dark Tower is proving to me that this man knows his fantasy. He is obviously a fan. He's a big fan of Lord of the Rings, apparently. He obviously knows his stuff when it comes to fantasy. But yeah, I've talked about in my Dark Tower reviews, but seriously, some of the most original and most imaginary fantasy stories I've ever read in my entire life. It's incredible what he is able to create here. His fantasy is surreal, it's weird, it's really out there, but there's this great sense of world building, this great sense of characters, this great sense of plot and cohesion, and all the things that you expect from the great fantasy stories. And he's very descriptive when he wants to be, and it's just like, man, he knocks out of the park in fantasy. But again, he's not just good at fantasy. He's not just good at horror or thriller. He can also write post-apocalyptic. He can write romance when he wants to, and he can write a great coming-of-age story. I mean, this is just stuff he's hinted at in the books I've read by him. But seriously, when I finished Christine, I thought, man, there's a great romance story in there. When I finished it, there was a great coming-of-age story in there. When I finished The Stand, that was a great post-apocalyptic, kind of do-it-all story. It has a little bit of everything. I mean, this dude can just write in any genre, it seems, that he wants to. I know that he's written some nonfiction, and I'm interested in checking out. I know he's written, romance and time travel stories and all sorts of stuff, and I can't wait to read more, because it just seems like this man has the talent to write across multiple genres and it not trip him up for a second. There are authors who do try to get out of their wheelhouse, whether, maybe their wheelhouse is science fiction or fantasy or whatever, and it doesn't quite translate for them. But for King, at least from what I've read, this man doesn't have to just write horror. He can write a really good story that's filled with romance or intrigue or, fantastical elements, and it just be great as always. Nothing slows him down, which leads me into my next point, the pacing. For some people, the pacing's always gonna depend on your personal taste. This is not some sort of universal fact, but I think Stephen King is very good at pacing. I know some people think he takes too long in telling his yarn, or that his books are just a little too long. But I disagree. I've read both It and The Stand, which are two of his longest stories that he's ever read, besides 11/22/63. And I thought the pacing in both were great. It has a lot going for it that it needs to be that long, and The Stand, man, just totally wrapped into the world that he built there. I had no issues with the pacing so far. I think even his slower paced novels, whether you consider that The Stand or It or, The Shining or whatever, he is able to build suspense. He's able to, kind of whisk you away into the world that he's created, whether that's in Maine or Colorado or, Southern Florida, it doesn't matter, or an entirely different world from ours. I think what King does so well is he uses his page count in a way that matters. There's a lot of authors out there where I can fully admit it feels like fluff, it feels like fluff when you read it, and I've never had that feeling with King. I've always felt like his page count was earned, at least in the stories I've read so far. I've not read Tommyknockers, okay, which is one that people criticize for being too long, but I feel like his pacing is just incredible. I think he builds his stories slowly. He's definitely a slower burn author when he wants to be. He can also, write an incredibly fast-paced novel when he wants to as well. But yeah, I've always enjoyed his pacing. I think everything I've read so far has been paced wonderfully, and I seriously, genuinely have no complaints in that department. Even especially in his I'll kind of keep going back to this, but a lot of the fantasy I read is really long, and so far The Dark Tower is not that. It's in and out, and it's paced wonderfully. It's incredible what this dude can do, and his horror is just the same, and his thrillers are just the same. So yeah, his pacing is incredible. Now, this is something I think a lot of people can appreciate, is King's ability to write premises. The premises he has in these stories varies wildly, but they're always fun. I've never read a description of a Stephen King book and been like, wow, that's really boring. Why? Who would read that? Who would read that? Even his worst reviewed books, the premise itself seems incredible. If you read the premise of I don't even know what his worst reviewed book would be, something like the Tommyknockers, or maybe Sleeping Beauties or something like that. You read the description and you're like, this sounds incredible. I'm in. Like he can go from something like Ghost Car and Christine to sociopathic mass murderer and Mr. Mercedes to, you know, a Lovecraftian clown that is like feeding off the natural evil of Derry in it to, you know, multi-world adventure fantasy story in The Dark Tower to, you know, a plague that wipes out 99% of humans in The Stand, and it all just works. Like this dude sets up, he comes up with a premise, and then he just writes it, and he writes it in such a way that it's just like, whoa, like I didn't, you know, like how can you write a 600-page book on a ghost car? I don't know, but did I enjoy myself? Absolutely, I did. You know, why is there a 1,000-page book on a Lovecraftian clown that haunts a town? I don't know, man, but I don't think that there's a page in there I didn't enjoy. He comes up with these ideas, and it just seems like he nails it every time. He's so good at the supernatural, and he's also incredible at the natural, and that's something, again, he just does so well. He combines these elements in storytelling, and he just, you know, he takes people who are ordinary and puts them in extraordinary circumstances, and I think that's something I just really appreciate about him as an author. But I'll get back to his character writing very soon, because that's definitely a highlight for me for him as an author. Another thing that he's very good at that I've noticed, and again, something I don't necessarily see a lot of, at least from the videos I've seen online about what he's good at and what he's not, is the themes. Stephen King is incredible at writing themes. It's something I noticed immediately, even after finishing Salem's Lot, which was my first Stephen King book. Technically, you know, I did read it in middle school. I didn't like it. I bounced off it pretty hard, but, you know, Salem's Lot is my real first King novel. But I noticed immediately, this dude is so good at writing themes. Like in Salem's Lot, for example, there's this entire idea about a dying town. Now, obviously in Salem's Lot, the town is dying because there's a vampire problem, but he is just so good at writing small town America, and he's so good at weaving in these ideas of, you know, what leads these towns to dying? What creates a ghost town? Is it something supernatural, or is it something way more natural? Is it capitalism, or is it, you know, just human migration, or is there something in the water? And I just think that's something he does so well. And that's not the only theme he's very, very good at. He's also incredible at writing trauma and complex trauma, especially in children. Dude knows how to write trauma. I mean, he's talked about children experiencing some horrible things, you know, whether it be a drunk father, or, you know, mass murdering clown, or, you know, a murderous car. It doesn't matter. He is able to just write about human trauma and human conflict in a way that I think is very real, no matter what the premise is. I just, you know, his books can be really harrowing, you know, especially if you really think about, you know, what would it be like to be a child or an adult in this scenario. It can be hard, but he just writes it in a way that I just think it's very human. You know, he doesn't deal with trauma in some sort of like, you know, like just you know, back of the hand doesn't really matter. I'm gonna dump this on the character and I'm not gonna deal with it. He does it in a way that I really appreciate. And another theme I think he does really well is this discussion of good and evil. There's always evil in Stephen King's novels. I mean, that comes with the territory of who he is as an author, right? But sometimes it's supernatural evil, and sometimes it's that human evil. And I like the fact that he's always kind of wrestling with that. You know, what is evil? Where does it come from? Why do people do these things? Is it the devil, or is it something else? You know, or do these ghosts and do these things manifest because it's some just supernatural divine punishment? Or, you know, is it us? Is it us humans where we project our worst parts of ourselves onto these things, whether it be, a haunted hotel or, the Lovecraftian clown or whatever? And is that why these things exist? What is it? What comes first, the chicken or the egg? And I really like that. And he does also talk about the good things that humanity does. I think The Stand is his best work when it comes to the discussion of good and evil. I'll just say it. There's a lot of religious themes in there about Christianity and the Old Testament God, and what is the nature of evil, how does it come to exist, and how much does God really intervene on humanity's behalf and all that. I don't know. Like there's really he's just able to write just a variety of ideas and expound upon the themes. He's one again. Another one he does so often, and for obvious reasons, is addiction. I mean, this dude had The Shining is maybe his best example, but Christine's there too. But just a man dealing with addiction to alcohol or drugs or whatever, and he just writes it so well, and he makes it real. It's not just some like, I'm an alcoholic, but it's a minor part of my character. No, it's an influence, and it's not just I'm gonna instantly cave to my addiction. There's a genuine struggle there of trying to be a better person, and sometimes when you fight addiction, you lose. That's a fact of life. Sometimes people do lose if they don't get the help that they need, and I really appreciate that about King. He's always willing to write about topics that are uncomfortable. He's willing to go there. He's willing to say, look something in the face, look evil in the face, and question it, and convey it to his readers in a digestible but meaningful way. So that's something I really appreciate about King. He's just so good as being a thematic writer, and I don't know if people appreciate that enough about him as an author. And finally, the thing that he does better than anything, and I think honestly he delivers on this in every story, no matter what it is characters. Stephen King is the champion. I don't know if there is an author I've read out there that delivers more human characters, more relatable characters than Stephen King. His character writing, there's no one better in my opinion. There are authors who are very good at it. There are authors whose characters I can say I love more than Stephen King, but I don't know if any of them are better, if they're more three-dimensional. I don't know if they're more human than the kind that Stephen King comes. And it's not just, what's incredible about King is he can write any age group. Bill Hodges is a 60-something-year-old detective, and he writes them incredibly well. Danny from The Shining is like 8-9 years old, writes them incredibly well. The Losers Club is a bunch of elementary school kids, and he writes them incredibly well. Dennis and Arnie from Christine are two 17 and 18-year-old boys, and he writes them incredibly well. He can write women and men well too. It's not just like, he just writes boys and they're good. Bev is one of the most she was one of the best realized female characters I've ever read, and she's incredible. So it's not just he just writes this particular age group well, or he only writes this gender well. He is just able to write any character super well. I think he just delivers on that time and time again, and he's so good. You know what's really incredible? He's so good at writing people in his story that you feel sympathetic for that you shouldn't. I think obviously the one that I think of is so much with this when I talk about this is obviously Danny's dad from The Shining. Just a dude struggling with addiction. He's struggling to make it. He's made some bad choices in his life, and it's led him to having to manage the Overlook Hotel and all that comes with that. And I don't know, like it's just I saw the movie first, and I talked about this in my review, but man, I felt way worse for everyone in the book than I ever did in the movie. I just couldn't believe how Jack acted in the book compared to the movie. It was incredible, and it's just he can write a sympathetic villain when he wants to, or he can write a just total crazy sociopath, like the killer from Mr. Mercedes. Dude, what a depraved individual that was. And that's what I mean. Like, he can write a really good character who makes mostly good choices, or he can write a totally black character who makes mostly bad choices, and you fall in love with both. He can create a Pennywise, or he can create like a Larry Underwood. You know what I mean? He has this ability to balance characters incredibly well. The Stand is so good at this. Salem's Lot is good at this. All of his stories are good at this. And it feels like, I've read from multiple decades of King. I've read from his 2000s works with Mr. Mercedes. I've read from his, 80s with Salem's Lot. I've read from, his Christine era. And, eventually I'll read his 90s and early 2000 works as well. But yeah, this dude delivers across multiple decades, multiple age ranges, both genders, and people of all sorts of different backgrounds, and it just keeps delivering time and time again. King he's very versatile. That is something I really have to emphasize, is his versatility. He doesn't just write one kind of story. He writes a lot. Obviously he's best known for his horror, as I've said before, but he doesn't just write like one kind of horror. He can write psychological horror, he can write body horror, he can write like esoteric Lovecraftian horror, he can write very grounded, everyday kind of horror, but he also doesn't just write horror. He writes suspense, he writes thrillers, he writes romance, he writes coming of age, he writes all these things. And the human experience in all of them, is very different, but it's something you can connect to. I just think that is essentially what makes King one of the best writers I've come across, and my personal favorite is his ability to write humans, to write about humanity in its good and in its evil, to write humanity in its grays. And to just be able to tell a tale that will connect with you, and obviously it varies, not everyone is going to like it. Not everyone is going to like The Shining. Not everyone's going to like The Stand. But I think because of how prolific of a writer he is, and how wide, how much of a kind of buckshot range he has as an author, I would be very surprised if there wasn't one Stephen King book out there that pretty much anyone can enjoy. You want a time traveling love story that's about just two humans, 11, 22, 63 is right there. You want a coked up, crazy, just off the wall, nutty, esoteric, Lovecraftian, whatever, the Tommyknockers. You want something that's more grounded, more gritty, more real, Mr. Mercedes. You want good old-fashioned horror. You want to be scared. You want to be frightened. Pet Sematary. Salem's Lot. It. There's just something. I think there's something there for everyone. I don't think that you can label King as just a horror author, or just a suspense author, or he only writes these really grotesque and like really nasty stories. I don't think that's true. I think Stephen King is prolific enough now that he can, he's written pretty much everything, it seems, that at least to me. And I think that's what I love about him so much. And I can't wait to read more, because again, I've only read 9 books of his, a very small amount. This dude has written over 70 novels, full-length novels, and several shorter stories. Like Needful Things is a collection of shorter stories. The Graveyard Shift is a collection of shorter stories. Night Shift, Trash Man, all sorts of stuff. And that's not even getting to his Richard Bachman alternative personality thing that he had, where he wrote another 7 entire books. So I've got a long way to go when it comes to this dude's bibliography, but from what I've seen, the snapshot I've seen, This man's he's talented. He is incredibly, incredibly talented. And I can't wait to read more. I really think, and I can't emphasize this enough, that he is one of the best authors I've ever read. He's definitely my favorite, and hopefully the reasons I've listed interest you if you for some reason not tried out Stephen King. I implore you to give this man a go. Just try out all of his different flavors. Try something from different eras. Try something from the different genres he's written. And even if it's maybe not his most beloved work by other fans, maybe you'll connect with it in a big way. That's something I realized with Christine, man. Just because his other fans aren't the biggest proponents of it, doesn't mean I won't like it. I like Christine a lot. Heck, I liked it more than Salem's Lot, which says a lot. That's one of his most beloved works. So don't be afraid to try the Dark Tower, try his new stuff, try his old stuff. Just check it out, see what works for you, and hopefully there's just something out there that clicks for you in a big way, because this guy's really special, and I think it would be a disservice as a reader to not try him. I do mean that. I mean, this dude is really, really talented, super talented, very good in pretty much every aspect that matters to me, at least, of what makes a great writer. So I'm excited to read more. My next book by his is going to be Pet Sematary, which is apparently his scariest. And after that, I'm going to finish up The Dark Tower, man, which has just been awesome. Just incredible. And I can't wait for more. This is the year of King for me, man. 2025 is the year for King. He's already my most read author so far this year, and I don't think that's going to slow down anytime soon. So why should you read Stephen King? Because he's awesome. He's the GOAT. He's incredible at writing suspense. He's incredible at writing horror. You already know that, though. But he's really incredible at writing characters. And he's got such a huge bibliography that, yeah, maybe Salem's Lot or Carrie or Cujo won't work for you, but maybe one of his shorter stories will. Maybe The Green Mile will. Maybe 11/22/63 will. Maybe Shawshank Redemption will, man. I mean, this dude has written it all, and he's incredible. I mean, he's famous for a reason. Try him out.